God's timing is perfect. When He opens a door, it's a call to step forward with faith, leaving doubt, fear, and hesitation behind. Many people miss their chance because they wait too long. When God calls, He expects you to answer. Throughout the Bible, we see how God works in seasons. There was a moment when the Red Sea split, and Israel had to cross before the waters closed. There was a time when Jericho's walls fell and people had to take the city. There was an instant when Jesus passed blind Bartimaeus, who had to shout before his chance was gone. When God opens a door, it's not for tomorrow or some far-off time. It's for now. Too often people hesitate. They ask, is this really God? What if I fail? What if I'm not ready? While they question, the door starts closing. The enemy loves hesitation. He knows when God calls you to move, there's a breakthrough waiting. So he whispers lies, you're not good enough, strong enough, ready. But here's the truth. The open door isn't about your strength, it's about God's power. When God called Gideon, he was hiding in fear, yet God named him a mighty warrior. When God called Peter to walk on water during a storm, Jesus still told him to step out. When God calls you, He already knows your weaknesses, failures, and doubts. He isn't asking for your ability, only your availability. How many of you have been standing before an open door, afraid to walk through? God has been moving your heart, calling you forward, but you've been waiting for perfect conditions. My friend, perfect conditions never come. The right time isn't next year, when you feel more confident or when everything makes sense. The right time is now. Revelation 3:8 says, I place before you an open door that no one can shut. When God opens a door, no person, situation, or demon can close it. But you must walk through it. You must trust that if He opened it, He will support you through it. Today, I believe many of you stand on the edge of something powerful. God is calling you to a new level of faith, a new task, a new chapter in your life. But He won't force you through the door or push you against your will. He is calling, but the choice is yours. Will you step forward in faith, or will you let the door close while you stand still? Every great move of God in the Bible began with an open door. Noah's Ark, Moses before Pharaoh, David stepping into his destiny. God has always opened doors for His people. From the start of time, He has created moments where faith meets opportunity. Think about Noah. God told him to build an ark because a flood was coming. It had never rained before, and people mocked him. But Noah obeyed. When the rain came, the ark became the door to safety for him and his family. Moses stood before Pharaoh with just a staff and God's word. Egypt was the world's strongest nation, and Pharaoh's heart was hard. But God had opened a door that would lead Israel from slavery to freedom. Moses couldn't part the Red Sea by himself. He had no army to beat Pharaoh, but he had a calling. And when he moved forward in obedience, the waters split. David was only a shepherd when he was chosen as king. No one saw a king in him, not his father, brothers, or even the prophet Samuel at first. But God had opened a door, and when the time came to face Goliath, that was his moment. If David had waited or hesitated, he would have missed his calling. But he didn't. He stepped onto the battlefield, not with war weapons, but with faith in God's name, and the giant fell. Each of these men had a choice. They could have ignored the door before them. They could have let fear, doubt, or others' opinions stop them. But they didn't. They stepped through, and history changed. How many of us have been given an open door but are too scared to walk through? God has set a path before you and placed chances in your life. But if you don't move forward, you'll never see the miracle Noah had to build, Moses had to stand, David had to fight, and you must act. The door before you might not look how you expected. It might seem impossible, risky, or ordinary. But don't judge the door. Judge the one who opened it. If God put it in front of you, this is your time, your moment. Will you walk through, or will you stand at the threshold and let it close? The moment God opens a door for you, the enemy will try everything to make you doubt. He'll plant fear in your mind. He'll whisper, "What if you fail? What if you're not ready? What if this isn't God?" If you listen to those lies, you'll hold back, you'll retreat, and before you know it, the door will close before you step through. Think about the Israelites. God had opened the door to the promised land. He had freed them from Egypt, parted the Red Sea, given them manna from heaven. Everything led to this moment. But when the spies checked the land, fear gripped them. They saw giants instead of God's promises. They focused on their weakness instead of His strength. And what happened? They turned back. They missed their chance. A whole generation wandered in the desert and died without ever entering what God had prepared. Fear will always try to keep you from your destiny. The enemy knows if you step through God's open door, you'll become unstoppable. So he fights with fear, doubt, and worry. But listen, fear is a liar. Fear is not from God. The Bible says in 2 Timothy 1:7, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." Faith silences fear. Faith says, "I may not see the whole picture, but I trust the one who does." Faith says, "I may feel weak, but my God is strong." Faith says, "If God opened the door, I will walk through it no matter what stands in my way." Look at Peter. Jesus called him to leave the boat and walk on water. That was an open door to something amazing, and for a moment, Peter did it. He walked on water, but then he looked at the wind and waves. He let fear in, and the moment fear took over, he began to sink. The lesson is clear. While your eyes are on Jesus, you can walk through any open door. But the moment fear takes your focus, you will sink in doubt, hesitation, and missed chances. What door has God placed before you? What step of faith is He asking you to take? Are you letting fear hold you back? The time has come to silence the enemy. The time has come to say, "I won't let fear steal my destiny." The time has come to step forward with bold, unshakable faith. Life is full of chances. Some look good, some seem promising, and some even appear to be the perfect path. But not every open door comes from God. The enemy is a master of lies. He knows how to put doors before you that seem right, but they're meant to lead you away from your true calling. That's why wisdom is crucial. That's why prayer matters. In the desert, Jesus faced this test. The devil took him to a high mountain and showed him all the world's kingdoms. He said, "All this I will give you if you bow down and worship me." It looked like an open door. It seemed like an easy path to power. But Jesus knew it was a distraction. He knew true victory would come through the cross, not compromise. How many people have walked through the wrong door because it looked good? How many have followed money instead of God's mission? How many have chosen comfort over their calling? How many have picked what was easy instead of what was right? Proverbs 14:12 says, There is a way that seems right to a man, but in the end it leads to death. When God opens a door, it won't just look good. It will match His word. It will need faith. It will stretch you. It will push you to trust Him more. It won't always be the easiest path, but it will always be the right one. Think about Joseph. He was thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, falsely accused and jailed. If he had taken the easy path, bitterness, revenge, giving up, he would have missed his destiny. But because he trusted God, he walked through the right doors. In the end, he stood as second in command over Egypt. The very dream God gave him as a young man came true because he chose the right doors along the way. God has a plan for you. He has a destiny just for you. But not every chance is His will. That's why you must seek Him. That's why you must wait for His sign. That's why you must say, "Lord, not my will, but yours be done." You don't want just any door. You want God's door. You don't want just any chance. You want the one that leads to His promise. You don't want just any path. You want the one that takes you deeper into His presence. Comfort is one of the biggest blocks to faith. We like safety. We like knowing what's ahead before we take a step. But God's open doors rarely come with a map. They ask us to trust Him beyond what we can see. They call us out of what's familiar and into what's divine. Look at Abraham. He lived in his homeland, with family, wealth, and everything familiar. Then God said, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's house to the land I will show you." Genesis 12:1. Notice God didn't give him the full plan. He didn't tell him where to go. He simply said, "Go." And Abraham obeyed. He left everything, stepping into the unknown, trusting that God's promise was greater than his comfort. Because he walked through that open door, he became the father of nations. Some of you are waiting for God to show every detail before you move. But God doesn't work that way. He gives you a step, not a blueprint. He calls you to trust, not to control. He opens a door but won't force you through it. Peter had to leave the boat before he could walk on water. The disciples had to drop their nets before they could follow Jesus. Elisha had to burn his plows before stepping into his prophetic role. Every major move of God needs a break from what's comfortable. What is God asking you to leave behind? A mindset, a habit, a job, a relationship, a safe place that's keeping you from something greater. Don't let comfort rob you of your calling. Don't let what's familiar keep you from your future. Don't let fear of the unknown stop you from stepping into God's best. The place you're in now may feel safe, but if God is calling you forward, then staying put is the most dangerous thing you can do. Abraham could have stayed home. Peter could have stayed in the boat. The disciples could have kept fishing, but they didn't. They walked through the open door, and history changed. Now God is calling you. He is opening a door to something greater than you can imagine. But you must leave the safety of shore to walk on the waters of His purpose. You must be willing to step out even when you don't see the whole picture. Many people think God's open doors mean an easy path. They believe if He's leading them, the road will be smooth with few hurdles and a clear way. But the truth is, some of the greatest doors God opens look like giants, mountains, and impossible tasks. They don't come wrapped in comfort. They often come wrapped in struggle. Look at David. His open door wasn't a golden throne waiting for him. It was a battlefield with a giant named Goliath in his way. Everyone else saw the challenge and backed away. But David saw the chance and stepped forward. What seemed impossible was actually the door to his destiny. If he had run in fear, he would have stayed a shepherd boy. But because he faced the challenge, he became a king. Look at the Israelites. The door to the promised land wasn't a wide-open highway. It was a walled city called Jericho. It was giants in the land. It was battles that had to be fought. Some saw the challenges and turned back in fear. But those who trusted God, who obeyed, stepped into the land of milk and honey. Some of you stand before an open door but don't see it because it looks like a struggle. You face conflict, setbacks, resistance, and think, maybe this isn't from God. But hear me today. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not God. Just because it needs faith, staying power, and fight doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. Sometimes the very thing you try to avoid is the door God calls you to walk through. Paul knew this. In 2 Corinthians 12:9, God told him, "My grace is enough for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." That means when you feel small, God is strong. When you feel unfit, He is more than able. When you feel like giving up, His power will keep you going. If God has put a challenge in front of you, don't run from it. Run toward it. That hard season might be exactly what launches you into your purpose. That closed door might be pointing you to something better. That huge task might be what builds your faith and shapes your character. Don't ask for an easy path. Ask for strong faith. Don't ask God to remove every problem. Ask Him to give you the courage to beat them. Because when you step through the door that looks impossible, you'll find God's power waiting for you on the other side. When God says a door is open, it doesn't matter who stands against you. It doesn't matter who doubts you, who tries to stop you, or what blocks rise in your way. When God speaks, His word is final. No power in hell, no enemy on earth, no weapon made against you can shut what He has declared open. Revelation 3:7 says, "What He opens, no one can shut, and what He shuts, no one can open." That means when God makes a way, it's backed by His authority. It's sealed by His power. It's guarded by His might. No enemy, critic, or problem can change what God has set in motion. Look at Joseph. His own brothers threw him in a pit. They tried to ruin the dream God put in him. He was sold as a slave, falsely accused, and jailed. But through every trial, the door to his destiny stayed open. At the right time, he stepped into the palace, and no one could stop it. Look at Daniel. Jealous men plotted against him. They tried to shut the door of his power by throwing him to lions. But God kept the door open. The lions couldn't touch him. The very trial meant to destroy him became the story that lifted him even higher. Some of you face resistance. You've heard voices saying, "You're not qualified. You'll never make it. This is impossible." But let me remind you today, the same God who called you will establish you. If He opened the door, no rejection can close it, no delay can cancel it, no attack can undo it. But here's the key. You have to believe it. You have to walk with the confidence that if God is for you, nothing can stand against you. You have to stop letting fear and doubt keep you from moving forward. You have to quiet the voices that say you can't and listen to the one who says, "I've already made a way." Don't waste time worrying what people think. Don't fear the opposition. Don't let doubt hold you back. If the door is open, it's yours to walk through. God has put something before you that no one can take away. Will you step into it? Or will you hesitate and let the enemy convince you otherwise? When God opens a door, He often asks us to take a step before we see the full picture. He calls us to move forward based not on what we understand, but on His word. Too often we hesitate because we want all the answers before we obey, but faith doesn't work that way. Faith is stepping out when God says go, even when logic says wait. Think about Joshua and the Israelites at Jericho. God opened the door to the promised land, but the first challenge was a walled city so thick that chariots could drive on top. What did God tell them to do? Did He give them a battle plan with swords and strategies? Number. He told them to march around the city in silence for 6 days and then shout on the 7th. That made no sense, but they obeyed. And when they obeyed, the walls fell down. Look at Peter. He and his fellow fishermen had tried all night with no luck. Then Jesus said, "Put out into deep water and let down your nets for a catch." Luke 5:4. It made no sense. Every fisherman knew daytime wasn't the time to catch fish. But Peter said, "Because you say so, I will." The result? So many fish that the nets started breaking. Some of you are waiting for God to explain everything before you move. You're saying, "Lord, I'll go if you show me what's next. I'll obey if you promise success. I'll step out if you remove every problem." But that's not how faith works. Faith is Abraham, leaving his home not knowing where he was going. Faith is Moses, stretching his rod over the Red Sea before the waters part. Faith is Elijah pouring water on the altar before God sends fire from heaven. What is God asking you to do? Is He calling you to a new opportunity? Is He leading you into new territory? Is He asking you to take a risk that doesn't make sense? Don't wait for the full picture. Obey now. Late obedience is disobedience. Partial obedience is disobedience. If God has spoken, your job isn't to understand, it's to trust. Your job isn't to question, it's to obey. And when you do, you'll see His power move in ways you never dreamed. The moment you step forward in faith, the enemy will rise against you. He'll throw hurdles in your path. He'll send distractions, delays, and discouragement. Why? Because he knows that if you walk through that door, God's power will show in your life. The enemy doesn't fight what isn't a threat. If you face resistance, it's because you're stepping into something big. Look at Nehemiah. God put it in his heart to rebuild Jerusalem's walls. The door was open, the mission was clear, but the opposition was fierce. Sanballat and Tobiah mocked him, threatened him, and tried to stop the work. They spread lies, attacked his character, and even plotted to kill him. But Nehemiah didn't quit. He kept building with a sword in one hand and a tool in the other. In just 52 days, what seemed impossible was done. Look at Paul. Every time he entered a new season of ministry, the enemy attacked. He was beaten, jailed, shipwrecked, and betrayed. But he never gave up. He wrote in 1 Corinthians 16:9, "A great door for effective work has opened to me, and there are many who oppose me." Did you catch that? The open door and the opposition came together. That means trouble isn't a sign you're on the wrong path. It's often a sign you're right where God wants you. Jesus faced the greatest opposition right before the greatest victory. Before resurrection came the cross. Before triumph came suffering. But he endured for the joy ahead. He endured the cross. Hebrews 12:2. Some of you are about to give up because the battle has been hard. You thought that since God opened the door, it would be easy. But the resistance you face proves you're stepping into something powerful. The enemy wouldn't fight you if there wasn't something worth fighting for. This isn't the time to back down. This isn't the time to grow tired. This is the time to press in, to keep believing, to keep speaking God's promises over your life. The enemy can try to slow you down, but he cannot close a door God has opened. If you keep moving forward, if you refuse to quit, if you trust God even in the battle, you will walk through the door into your destiny.